We can kick off today's webinar. You got UX in my UI. I'm Lauren Jankowski, the VP of Marketing here at GlideFast Consulting, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to give you all some background information about GlideFast. GlideFast is a consulting firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. As an Elite ServiceNow Partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 450 experienced consultants. We were named the 2022 America's Elite Partner of the Year and the Global Elite Segment Partner of the Year. I'm excited to hand things over to our presenters for today. We have Tim Engstrom, our UI UX lead at GlideFast, and David Arbour, an Associate VP of Professional Services at GlideFast. I'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout today's session, so please send in any questions as they arise, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Hi, I'm Tim Engstrom. As Lauren said, I'm the UI UX lead at GlideFast. I am relatively new to ServiceNow, but what I am bringing is my insight from over 25 years of experience in design from across a variety of industries. I've worked in finance, enterprise software, agencies, games, healthcare, and social media. And what I've come to understand is how all these different user groups behave and respond in different ways. So let's figure out how we can do that. So today, we're going to figure out the differences between UI and UX, kind of go through a little story, and we'll make it really simple. Then we'll figure out how we can improve the UX in ServiceNow experiences. And then David's going to talk to us a little bit about how technology and design have this interlocking marriage. And we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. So feel free to drop those in the Q&A as we go. So starting off, the confusing world of design. Back when I started, there was just graphic design. It was just one encompassing thing. But over the years, because of technology and philosophy and the way that we interact with each other, things started to change. So things fractured into like web design and print design, and even into motion design. We got visual design, brand design, and it kept on going. The more and more we introduced things like smartphones and tablets, the more the industry became to be fractured and specialized. But today, we are just going to talk about UI and UX. So what is UI, or user interface? The easiest thing I can say is that it is anything that a user can interact with. Absolutely anything. So we can go into phones, which is obvious, computers, fairly obvious, doors are an interface. Your dinner is an interface. Any software that you use can be an interface. Cars are an interface. So if we think about that, that's how we interact. We are the user, we're interfacing with something. So if that's what that is, what is the user experience? I'm going to get a little foofy, and it's how the user feels when they're interacting with something. I know I kind of feel like a cheap therapist. So when you're using something, I need to come up behind you and kind of say, so how does that make you feel? And that's truly what it is, because feelings are what are actually going to bring value. So let's look at a light bulb and a light switch. It's a simple, easy interaction that a user is going to have. Normally, you're not going to have a feeling associated with that, probably because you've been using it for so long. You have these expectations that when you flip on that switch, it's going to come on. Now, the feeling associated it is actually going to be negative, because sometimes you'll come in, you'll flip on that switch, and the light may burst and it'll go into sudden darkness. You're going to be filled with disappointment, frustration, maybe even fear. So now you've got a negative connotation with this experience. Now, on the other side, when you go car shopping, maybe you got a huge bonus, you want to go buy a car. You may think that you can be impartial about it, but you're going to choose the car a lot on how it looks and can you see yourself inside it. But when you actually go to the lot and you see that car sitting there, you're going to walk up to it. You're going to feel it. You're going to touch, you're going to feel those seams. You're going to touch the car and the color. It could excite you. You start to get excited about it. You open that car door. You step inside. The new car smell. All of a sudden, you're having an emotional reaction to this vehicle. And what's happening is you're increasing the value in your eyes of that car. You may end up paying more because you're eliciting this emotional response to this vehicle. And that is a lot of what user experience is bringing to the table. Is done right, it will increase the value through emotions or feelings. So let's kind of give you an example. I have a couple friends, Brad and Shanna, and they're hungry. They're going to go on a snack run. So Brad is going to go to his restaurant of choice. His first encounter is going to be the door. And I've encountered this so many times because doors are kind of funny. Our brains will cue in based on what we see, that we know it's a door, but how the handles are placed, where the door is, the type of handle that it is going to cue an expectation. And regardless of what a sign will say on that door is, we will reach for it and do something instinctually. And sometimes it's opposite of our expectations. And it doesn't matter how many times you use that door, your brain will always want to do that instinctual thing first. So unfortunately, Brad's starting off on a bad step. Shanna went over to her door, went in just fine. It met her expectations. Now inside, Brad realizes I can get points, I can get rewards for getting what I want. So he goes onto his app and logs in. Oh, it's an error. We've all encountered errors. So he's trying to figure it out. Okay, well, what's wrong? I did something wrong. It's probably my password. I can't see it. He has an error message that just says, please try again. You have 4 tries remaining. It's kind of ambiguous and yet at the same time, a little bit threatening. Shanna goes in and on her app, she does the same exact error, except the error message talks a little bit more human to her and addresses where she actually had the problem. And you can see it's just missing the dot before the com. So even though she had a problem, because it was addressed in a human way, in a kind way, she was able to get past her error without really feeling bad about it. Great, they get up to the counter, they order French fries. I love French fries. I hope you all love French fries. But they realize, oh, you can't have French fries without ketchup. So they grab their French fries and they go over to the condiment counter. Brad has a lovely glass bottle of Heinz ketchup. Shanna goes over to hers and there's a plastic bottle of Heinz ketchup. 2 same products, but different for their experience. Now, this is kind of funny because we're getting into sort of meta UX, and we actually have a product within a product that could possibly have a different experience. Now, there's some interesting things about the Heinz bottles. The glass bottle, original, based a lot on quality. People think that being in a glass bottle is going to be nicer, but people don't tend to know how to use it. So they slap the bottom of it, they'll shove knives up to try to get the ketchup come out. The new user experience that they created is a bottle that when you pick up, it feels like it should be squeezed. The cap is on the bottom, so the ketchup's already there. It makes it so much easier. It's so much more intuitive. The funny thing is that there is an interaction you can do with the glass bottle that would make it easier. They just didn't tell you about it. There's a little raised 57 on that bottle. If you hold the bottle at a 45-degree angle, tap on that little 57, the ketchup will actually come out fairly easy. Maybe not as easy as the plastic bottle, but it's not something that they told us. They kind of have a hidden user experience, which you never want to do. So Brad works on getting his ketchup out of the bottle and has a little bit of problem. Shanna immediately gets her ketchup, puts on the French fries exactly like she wants it. So in the end, they end up with the same product. They both have their French fries. They both had an add-on of ketchup. But if we look at the overall experience, Brad may come out feeling kind of sad, maybe a little bit depressed. It's hard to say. It's all these little tiny triggers that have a negative connotation are going to affect the value of the product that he chose. He may not want to come back because he doesn't want to go through that experience again. He may not want to tell his friends about it, or worse, he could tell his friends to stay away from there. Shanna, on the other hand, had a great experience. Even though she had a hurdle that she had to get over, it really was rectified in a way that addressed her needs that she could fix quickly and move on to get what she really wanted. So if we were to break it on down, if you have a product, you're going to have user interactions in the way of that product, whether they're the doors, the app, the ketchup, anything that you have. And then you're going to have your experience. And you should always be asking yourselves questions about your interactions. Is it easy to use? How was the login? How do you address errors? And how easy was it to access add-ons? So if we keep in mind that every interaction has an experience, regardless of if you intend them to have an experience, they are already there. So a user experience designer is there to help control that or to influence it. That's really the fun part, is to create that sort of hero's journey as we want to guide the user along on this path to where they feel success in themselves. They feel like this was a journey they took and they meant to get there. But at the same point, it helps guide your business to success. And that is the really key, is that marriage of user and business requirements, that business success, that journey that you want them to take. And we call that the designed experience, which is a purposefully created ServiceNow portal that works for you. So engaging your users. It's all about intention. So now you may be familiar with the service portal or employee center. We love working with ServiceNow. We love their portals. We love their employee centers, but we like to look at them as frameworks or templates. These are great ways to get started because they're so robust. They have so much that can bring to the table, whether they're bringing all your HR, IT, everything together for your users, or you're creating a customer service portal to help with incidences or catalog systems. It's just so much to work with. But does it reflect you? Does it reflect your company? Does this really speak to your users? And that's really what we want to get into, is how do we go from here to something that a user can really be comfortable with, that is excited to use, that wants to talk about it, that feels like, yes, I can go there and get my answers, and it's just going to be great. Well, we can start with your brand guidelines. I'm sure you all have brand books, or you're familiar with them, and they address the personality of your company, what your company likes to wear, how they like to present themselves, the imagery, the fonts. It's what your company is visually. And this is easy enough. We can go into a service portal or employee center, and we can dress it up. We can add colors. We can change your fonts. We can change your icons. But in the end, all we're really doing is making it a little bit closer to your brand. And is it still closer to your brand, or is it just a lightly skinned ServiceNow portal? You can kind of really see that the bones are there. But we really want to take it to the next level, because we're still really not talking to the user. At this point, we're just addressing basic business goals, and that's just your brand. So the next step is, well, we really need to get to understand your users. And this is really important. We need to find that empathy, and building personas is a great way to do it. Personas are an aggregate of your user base. When we build them out, there's a combination of one or two that really come close to representing who your users are. And we can use this as the filter for all decisions that we make. And once we have these built out, then we can go and we can start looking at the UX principles that are out there. There's about 20 of them that I like to leverage. There's also gamification techniques. I lean a lot into Octalysis, which is a huge web framework of different triggers that you can use to create delight and repeat visitation, engagement. So once we have this and we start filtering it through, it's like, how do we elevate it to the next level? This is sort of my example, not any particular business. It's based off of the little brand guidelines we saw earlier. But what I'm doing here is creating something that is a bit more user-centric. It's a little bit more inviting. I'm trying to bring in the brand imagery, really access the colors, and really create a map that will drive the user through it. So let's take a look at this a little bit. So what we have here is we're prioritizing things for what the user would want to see. Things that may be of importance to them, whether it's accessing their benefits and their paycheck or events, but really leveraging what came out of the persona. We like to have things that are accessible from the user's point of view, Maybe having their favorites up top is great, but they don't need to see it all the time, but they need to know it's there. So giving them control to open and close and create an experience that is uniquely theirs is great. And creating a space for them to see where actions are happening, whether it's stuff that they need to do, or it's stuff that they want to do, or they're getting responses. It's great to have something that they can quickly get to and move on. Bringing up events that are a combination of what a user wants to see, like holidays or special events, and intermixing them with business ones so that they have that relationship of, it's not all business on here, it's stuff that really pertains to me and where I find my interest. Having interesting campaigns and actually pulling them down a little bit lower can really help drive the user through the portal, knowing that there's content down here that is fresh, that it keeps changing, that this is where they want to start to go. And we don't like to be afraid of white space. White space is great. It helps to keep the user engaged a little bit more, to help them refresh their mind as they're flowing through, as opposed to overloading them with just content after content after content. And we like to add a little bit of whimsy in there, just to aid in bringing in a little bit of joy, because joy is always good. I like to think that when we design portals, there's a little bit of delight in each and every one of them. Another important aspect is to really create an ownership. We like to bring forward the user, maybe just even increasing their portrait image so it has a larger presence, so it feels like they're really a part of this. This is their place. This is where they can live within this community. Little things like this really help to shine, to really bring the user forward, to engage with them, and to create that space where they feel comfortable and want to succeed. And that is the real goal. If they're succeeding here, then they're succeeding for your business. They're doing the things that you would really like them to do that will help you and help them. But what can a portal look like? It can look like pretty much anything. Sky's the limit. It all really depends on your business, your brand, who your users are, how far you want to take it, what kind of message you want to say, where do you want to go? But the real question I think that comes to mind is there really any value in UX, especially from a business point of view? This is where it gets really fun. For every dollar invested in UX brings a return of $100. And yes, I did the math several times because it's like really 9900%. That is correct. Now, if we just use the user interface and we make it nice and pretty, we can get a conversion rate, which is any action you want your user to take. We can get it up to about 200% just by making your site look good. But if we improve the UX of the website, we can jump that as high as 400%. So we're taking just the aesthetic portion and we're adding that usability to it to really double what we want it to do. I mean, customers are willing to pay more for the experience. They say that the experience is just as important as its products and services. And then this is always great. I love this, is that 72%, almost 3/4 of the customers or users will talk about it. And that is huge. If you get people really being an advocate for you, I think that's really what you want, are those user evangelists. But there is a cost, and the cost is having a tight relationship between designer and technologist or developer. This is where I'm going to hand it off to David, and he can talk about how design and technology work hand in hand.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so as stated at the beginning, my name is David Arbour. I'm an associate VP of professional services at GlideFast Consulting, but I'm also a senior architect. So I've been in the platform for years now, doing building portals and building things all over the platform. So I'm still in the day-to-day grind, building amazing experiences. I'm not, even though that title may say I'm not actually doing the work, I'm doing the work. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about all the stuff that Tim has been talking about and how it translates over to actual development in the platform. I have far less slides than Tim because this is, this was all about the UI UX experience, but we wanted to make sure we connected those things at the end of the presentation. So yeah, so I have a few slides here. So first I want to talk about, generally speaking, obviously not speaking about all developers here, but I can speak for myself for sure. I mean, most developers are not designers, and I'm definitely not a designer. So I'm very good at going out and, building things that I've already seen before. maybe the latest and greatest that I'm seeing on some sites. I'm really good at building those things and adding the CSS and HTML to make those things look exactly as they do in the site I may be trying to replicate. But I'm not the one that actually comes up with new and innovative things for UI or UX on how to really bring a better user experience to the user. So that's one of the things that we learned from Tim early on here in this presentation, is that UX and UI are not the same thing. Whereas UI is the look and feel, and UX is the experience from the user, the feel that the user gets. At GlideFast, designers work with developers to ensure the UX and UI work perfectly together. And there's a workflow to it, which we'll go over here in the next slide. This is the workflow that we use at GlideFast, a summarized version. But to give you the general idea of how we do this, designers generally will work with the customer in a workshop. Maybe it's more than one workshop. It all depends on the needs of the customer, but they'll work with the customer in a workshop. And the result of that workshop will be mockups, typically a few mockups that sort of give them an idea of what we can do based on the requirements that we've gathered as part of that workshop. And the actual process for talking them through that and actually walking through a workshop is different depending on what type of portal they're wanting to implement, what products they're trying to implement. But generally it's asking them about, like Tim had mentioned, personas, and asking about their users and asking about the experiences their users currently have and where their pain points are, all those different points. But ultimately what comes out of that is a few mockups. We mock up in an application outside of ServiceNow, Adobe XD, which allows us to do things very quickly, right? We can mock up very quickly. We can make changes very quickly on the fly in front of the customer, which really allows us to be very agile with our designs. So after that first step, after we've created those mockups, customer comes back. We show them the designs. They come back and tell us which one they like the best. And we also do an interactive sort of play with the mockup at that point and change things on the fly that the user may want to change. I mean, the customer may want to change. Finally, what we're trying to get to there is the final sign off, right? The final mockup to say, yes, the customer says this is what they want. This is what we're going to build. And this is the design we're going to start building towards, right? Which at that point, designers pass that mockup on to the developers so they can actually begin the development. And it's important to note here that as this project goes on, as this effort goes on, developers and designers are constantly collaborating. And Tim and I are working on a couple of projects right now together where I can tell you I'm hitting him up on Slack constantly, like, hey, we forgot about this one little thing. Can you tell me what you want to do for this from a design perspective? And then I'll go and build that. So it's definitely a collaborative thing, constant throughout that the development process. So this is an example mockup. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is not ServiceNow, but this is a mockup that's done in XD to show a customer what can be done based on their needs. And this was not a real customer. This is one that we created for actually an exercise that was internal. This is the front page of the portal for this customer. As you can see, it's got obviously they're big on branding. So they've got a giant snack there in the top left, which is their header of their portal. And this is their front page. So it's got, sort of their mission statement there on the front, and allows them to go wherever they want to go from that front page. Then this one is more about, I think this is a knowledge one, actually, if I'm not mistaken, where they go in to read their knowledge articles, just a different look and feel than what you would expect from ServiceNow. And then we have a form here, right? And this is typical where we would come up with a few designs like this that show completely different areas of the platform that you're going to, that we're going to build in that portal. So the customer really gets an idea of, like, if we never showed them a form of what a form might look like on this in this portal, then they may come as a complete surprise to them if we hadn't shown them, hey, look, your users are going to interact with forms all the time. So this is what we envision your forms are going to look like. So we try and cover all those bases in that mock-up stage. So talking about real quick the advantages of using mockups. Ultimately, right, as a developer, speaking from a development perspective, this is much easier to work with than actually, working through stories that may just tell me what the portal wants to look like, or the customer wants the portal to look like. And it becomes a graphical representation of those requirements for the customer. So it makes it easier on the customer, again, for the approving process, and it makes it easier on the developers because I can go over and I can see exactly what colors we're setting the mock-up. I can see the spacing, I can see the fonts, I can see everything that I need to see, right there in that snapshot, without having to dig real deep. Okay. So essentially that takes the guesswork out of UX and UI development. And again, you're still doing this in sprints, you're still doing this and bringing it back to the customer and letting the customer see it in regular intervals so we can make sure we make adjustments as we go. We don't mean to say that this is, your design is your design. Things do change, which is the point of agile development. Things do change along the process. Overall, this reduces total time from design conception to go live, which does in turn reduce overall costs. Again, guesswork is going to take time. And the more we can get nailed down as part of the design process and actually have that developer build, then the savings go to the customer that we're working with. Another perk of this is that we can save that XD file and use it later for something, think about industry verticals. If we're working with a healthcare company, they're likely going to have some elements that are common among all healthcare companies, maybe not all, but a portion of those healthcare companies. And so one of the things that we can do is take our designs that we've done in an industry vertical and save that out and then reuse that at a later time with changing obviously branding, maybe like Tim added some whimsy in one of the ones that he showed before. So we may get a feel for that customer. That customer may want a little more whimsy or a little less whimsy. The point is we can mock things up much quicker over time as we build these mock-ups for customers. So that's all I've got pretty much, but I did want to end this with a quote from Charles Eames. And Charles Eames is a famous designer, architect. He did architectural design and furniture design back in the day. I don't know exactly how long ago. His quote here is that the details are not the details, they make the design. And I wanted to bring this up because this couldn't be more true. I've done web development, full stack development for a very long time. Not a designer, but I understand the attention to detail and how if a padding or a margin is off in one place in the platform, it can almost ruin the whole thing, right? In a website, it can almost ruin the whole experience, because why didn't they pay attention to that little thing, right? Because that's the details, right? It's the details here that really do make everything. And one thing that we do at GlideFast Consulting is absolutely pay attention to those details and make sure our designs go out with every attention to detail possible. I also want to show you on the next slide here, if you're ready, Tim, that we do have a demo portal that everyone is free to go check out if you would like. That is the site at the bottom. So glidehits.servicenow.com/GH. This is our demo portal that shows some of the work that we've done, not by industry vertical, but by the modules in the platform. So we have CS, customer service portals, HR portals, employee center, ITSM, things like that. So feel free to go check that out. It actually states on there what the complexity of each portal would have been as well, where complexity of 1 star may be, an easy branding and a few slight changes, and the complexity of 3 stars may be a completely custom portal with custom widgets. But yeah, that's what we have to show everyone, and we're going to open it up to questions and answers after this. Lauren, did you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so I have seen some questions coming in. So I know our first one came up about around slide 25, 26. I think Tim had some examples of actual portals on the screen. So someone wanted to know, is this a custom portal, a ServiceNow service portal, or an employee portal? Any insight to that?
That is based off of an employee center portal.
Awesome.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, perfect. That answers the question. And then here's another one. So in your experience, where should the designer be creating the mockup?
Well,
the designer
we talked about being XD, right?
Yeah, we use Adobe XD here, which is great because it's part of the Adobe Creative Suite. But there are others. There's Figma, which is really big in the design industry, but that just got purchased by Adobe, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. There's Azure. There's a whole lot of them out there. It's, for the most part, whatever your designer is comfortable with, that translates well over to the developer side, because that's what David was talking about. That whole relationship between designer and developer is paramount. XD has some great tools that when you when I send it over to David, when we're working together, it has a side panel that has some great developer tools on there so that he can see colors and SVGs and padding and all that, all sorts of stuff that he could use helpful.
Awesome. I think you kind of just answered the next question as well that I had. Someone asked, what tools do you use when creating a designed experience?
Well, actually, my favorite tool is not a software tool at all. It's what I call my petulant 3-year-old child inside of me. And I love to ask the question, why? Like when a client says, we really need this button up here, I like to ask why. I like to have the reasoning behind why we're doing something. And this is a question I ask myself constantly as I'm doing concepts too. And I ask it of other designers and developers. And if I can get the reason behind why something needs to be there, it makes a lot of sense, but it also puts that purpose there, that intent that I'm putting that button there for a reason. And it makes things stronger when, I mean, if I work with you and you're a client, ask me why I did something. I will always have an answer.
Intentionality. Yeah.
Lots of questions coming in. Here's another. From a tech design perspective, do you limit yourself with out-of-the-box widgets or take it to the next level based on business requirements?
I can answer that one. Yeah, so that really depends, right? We try to stay out of the box on these widgets as much as we possibly can, just applying styling where we can. But obviously, sometimes the customer is going to want something that's structured differently than what we can do with CSS. With simple styling, and we do have to actually create a widget. If we're going to create a widget, clone a widget, and actually customize a widget, we want the customer to always understand that that customization comes with a price over time, right? There's maintenance costs that come with that. There's the fact that in your next upgrade, that may get skipped or likely will get skipped as an upgrade if ServiceNow has changed something. So it's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on through the life of their portal. But we have the capability to build. I tell every customer whenever they ask me if something's possible in the portal, I say anything is possible. If you can dream it, we can build it. It's a matter of trade-off as to whether that is something that you need for your business needs, or if it's something that you're just doing because you want to do it. We probably need to talk about that and think about the best way forward.
Awesome. Here's another one. Hello, I want to ask if there is any rule or direction when you have multiple types of personas in the company. How do you satisfy all different personas in one single employee portal?
That's a great question. That's a design question for you, Tim.
That is a design question. And that is a lot of personas. I would actually recommend that you get that down to a maximum of 3, but it is possible to, I guess, juggle the 7 different types of personas that you have. It's just, you just really have to get in their mind and realize that not everything is going to work for everyone under those scenarios. And you just kind of want to do your best to manage it without watering it down too much.
What does your process look when developing good UX?
A lot of my process, like the first 90% of it, is almost just working with the client and asking questions. I really like to get into the head of your business, your leaders, the stakeholders. I like to ask them about their users, what their users are expecting, how they walk through any current processes they have, any problems that they have. And the more information I can get up front as far as user personas, all these questions, then I can really start down applying the brand to the employee center or the service portal, whatever they want to build out, and just ideating and constantly asking myself these why questions and creating that hero flow of, we know what the business requirements are. This is what success looks like for the business. How do I get the user there, keep them happy, keep them engaged, and just concept. I think you would be amazed at the number of concepts I throw away before I come to a client with 3 concepts that I am proud of.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Awesome. Here's another question that does come up a lot as well. How long does this process usually take from design to go live?
Yeah, I can speak probably to that pretty well. So again, that depends, right? It depends on what we're taking on, how custom that site's going to be, how custom that portal is going to be, what's in scope. Is this an employee center where we have HR, ITSM, and other areas? Is it the CSM, whatever it may be? It really depends. I would say workshopping for the actual design process is usually done in a few hours. About a week later, we typically have those mock-ups over to the customer, and then a week after that, we typically have that final all set out, and we're beginning to develop. And it's typically 3 or 4 sprints. So we're probably talking 6 to 8 weeks after that, where things are developed and ready to go. But again, that's typical. That's not every case by any means. There are exceptions to that.
What are some challenges when creating a designed experience?
I think that a lot of the big challenges is getting the clients or the stakeholders to get out of their own head and realize that we're building this for somebody else to use, but we want those users to meet their business requirements. And a lot of times opinions come in, and that's why I like to ask the why. I've actually had a client at one point, I don't want to say who, it was a long time ago at a different ad agency, and they said, we don't like that color purple. It represents something that we don't like. But it made no sense to us because their reasoning was flawed. I don't even want to get into the whole why they didn't like that color, but it was aimed at a very young audience, and their demographic screamed use purple. So there was a huge disconnect, and a lot of there's this conversation behind, are we filtering through the personas? Are we using that properly? Are we realizing that this is for them to succeed and meet your business goals, not for you to be happy with how the design looks? So there's making sure we communicate that correctly and really address that and know coming into it that who we're making this for.
That's a good point too, Tim. To add to that, sorry, I know one of the things that we do often when talking with customers is ask for user input, user surveys, to really understand how the users use the portal. Because a lot of times we'll have stakeholders in meetings with this, and that stakeholder may not be a typical user of that site. So it really is important that we get those personas and we get some feedback from users if at the end of the day you want that portal to be the best user experience possible.
Well, and here's a good question coming off that one. Once a portal is launched, what metrics or indicators over time do you look at to evaluate how successful the design is?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I can take this one. So there is the newer analytics in ServiceNow, portal analytics, that allows you to see from, as a customer, who's using my portal, how they're using it. There's all sorts of metrics there for them to pull from. If the question is more from our perspective, we try to continue our relationship with our customers throughout, into the future, so that we can talk to them again in the future to ask how their user adoption has been, to ensure that what we've implemented for them has been a success. And it is that's something that takes a long time, right? It's not something that we get immediate gratification from or immediate responses from to say, oh yeah, we did this great job. A lot of times we are following up 6 months, 9 months later, just to ensure that what we've built has met all of the needs of that customer. So from our perspective, that's how we handle it. I think from a customer's perspective, they have tools that ServiceNow is now built for you in the portal analytics.
Awesome. Looks like I've got 3 more questions for you guys. You've spoken a lot about the design process and how it relates to the building of portals at Employee Center. But what about UI Builder? Does this same process apply to UI Builder?
Yeah, that's another great question. Yeah, it does. It does in a sense. UI Builder obviously is, for those who do know, is the newer way to build UI experiences in ServiceNow that's not portal. So it's not AngularJS based. It's based on a proprietary ServiceNow technology, and it's still fairly new. Just to be honest, the skill set's not there with everyone to build that quickly just yet, and there's not really parity between the two, between UI Builder and Service Portal and Employee Center at this point. So we absolutely can do this in UI Builder, but again, the process is going to be different. Not the design process. The design process is always going to be the same, but the process of building, it's going to be a little bit different, right? The design to the build, simply because that, again, it's a newer technology that we're dealing with here.
Yep. And someone just asked, can you mix portal and UI Builder?
That's a question that's a technical question. You can, from what I understand, so UI Builder is a completely different technology, so you're not going to have the two things working completely together. But you can certainly host things from Portal in iframes and whatnot within UI Builder, as far as I understand. That, it doesn't allow that, things don't communicate right between the two systems because they're completely different technologies. But there are ways that you can get pieces from the portal into UI Builder.
What is a bad design practice you see happening on ServiceNow portals?
Yeah, ServiceNow is great. They give you all these wonderful widgets that you can put on the front page and make it just really compact. And I think it's a philosophy I like to refer to as kitchen sinking. It's like when you throw the kitchen sink at it, you're throwing everything there, and you just want access to everything on the front page. And to me, that just causes so much cognitive overload for the user that they almost get decision paralysis and don't know what to do. So to me, it's hard. It's hard to simplify sometimes. It's easy to create something complex, but how do you make it simple? How do you remove things? How do you pull things back and make them just a click through, creating a path? Clicks are not bad. Over-clicking is bad, but do not kitchen sink, please.
That goes back to everything having intention. And, one of the other things to bring up here is that the original service portal for ServiceNow was meant to be an example service portal, not necessarily a default service portal. And there is a difference there, right? What ended up happening a lot in the development of portals in the past is that that was sort of seen as the default and the starting point for everything, when in fact it was intended to be more of an example. So the designed experience walks you through building things from scratch, building things without that scaffold to begin with, right? And Tim and his team come at this from an angle of let's find out what you need rather than let's compare what you think you need to what the out of the box portal looks like, which ends up getting us to a much better product at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I think you kind of just touched on this last question here. When you build a portal for a customer, are all of the widgets custom, or do you stick with out of the box widgets?
Yeah, I did touch that one already. Yeah, so again, when we can, we stick with out of the box. Obviously, that's always our advice in every area of the platform. But business needs sometimes drive customizations, and when we have to do that, we do it carefully, and we do it, after informing the customer completely of the risks.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think the audience just grilled you with some good questions. So that was great.
Excellent.
And if anyone has any more questions, feel free to send them over to info@glidefast.com, or if you'd like to reach out to Tim or David personally, it's their first last name @glidefast.com. All right, and that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Tim and David for that awesome presentation. Everyone will be receiving a recording of today's webinar, and it will also be posted on the GlideFast YouTube channel. To see more sessions just like today's, visit our website or YouTube channel. And if you have any more questions, reach out to us at info@glidefast.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.